I couldn't do it. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we are going to be doing my mid-year book freakout tag. Alright, before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what was the most disappointing book you've read so far this year. Alright, it is that time of year again. I can't believe it. Wild that it's already midway through the year, honestly. This is just one of those required tags that I think everybody on booktube does about this time of year. It's a perfect overview of how your reading has been going so far. Let's jump right into the questions. First up, best book you've read in 2024. I always have the hardest time ranking books I love, so I kind of cheated. I went to my spreadsheet and sorted them based on my pile breakdown. So what actually was considered the best book I've read so far this year? And I had two. Kind of worked out perfectly because one's nonfiction, one's fiction. Unlikable Female Characters by Anna Bogotyskaya. No part of me should be surprised by this because I had the most phenomenal time reading this book, and unfortunately I haven't read enough nonfiction this year. So I'm glad the ones I have read were this fantastic. I read this one for my feminist reading vlog. It came out on Women's Empowerment Day. I'll put a link to that in the cards up above if you missed it. But basically, this is the author going through all of the different examples of unlikable female characters and the different showcasing of those characters that we've seen and how that archetype has been created in different pieces of media so far. And the revitalization, the renewed interest in these sorts of unlikable characters. I had a fantastic time reading this, as I said, and I think I probably had one of the best experiences editing a video with that feminist reading vlog. As for the fiction book though, funny story by Emily Henry. What can I say? Emily Henry did it again here. This gave me the same feelings, the same obsession I had with Beach Read. I laughed, I cried, I squealed, I was kicking my feet. I had a phenomenal time. I fell in love with both of these characters and the growth that they go through, evolution of their dynamic. They initially start out as their exes, they become roommates, then slowly they build up this friendship. I really enjoyed the focus Henry did here with Daphne trying to feel comfortable in herself and really establish her own identity. She had lost herself in her prior relationship. Instead of that, Miles feels like he just sort of encourages Daphne to be the most authentic version of herself, and I also believe that is a big part as to why I loved the relationship between them so much. I'm not even a little bit surprised that this is one of the highest rated books I've read so far this year. Look at all these freaking tabs. Next question though, best sequel you've read so far in 2024. This one was also a little difficult, I'll be honest, just because I've been trying my best to really continue my series. I think the sequel I've loved the most this year has been Wolf in Sheep's Clothing by Charlie Adhara. I've spewed a lot of love about this series, fell into it and binged right through it. Phenomenal character work done in this series. The growth we see Cooper go through is fantastic. The healing that he and Oliver go through is also really well done. And the way it affects their relationship just feels true to real life. I loved it, but this one in particular, first off, it was a very fun mystery in which they are going undercover as a couple whilst actually being a couple, and they're investigating this werewolf retreat where a man has recently disappeared. But at the same time, at this point in their relationship, they're really established. The time they spend together is just so focused on the happiness they find in each other. So I really was just grinning ear to ear the entire time I read this one. Plus, it had a solid mystery that I really enjoyed. It had some very fun twists and turns throughout it. I think Adhara really just hit the ball out of the park with this one. Next question. New release you haven't read yet but want to. I haven't gotten around to Babylonia by 𝗖cie viņš𝘁, but I am very excited for it. She wrote 𝗖ście, which I read last year as a part of my Greek retellings video, and I really enjoyed the way she shifted the perspective of this female character who's often vilified in a lot of stories, humanized her so much, looked at her story with a renewed empathy, while at the same time not shying away from some of the darker things 𝗖ście did, built up that female rage throughout the story to make those moments all the more impactful, not just because she's a villainous character, but because of everything she's gone through for her to make these decisions. I thought 𝗖cie did a really great job with that novel. So of course, when I heard her coming out with another story in a similar vein, I was very excited. This one is actually going to be following a queen from the Assyrian Empire, which is an area of history that I don't know a lot about. But our queen is Semiramis. From the summary, it says, there are whispers of her fame in Mesopotamian myth. She was a queen, an ambitious warrior, a commander whose reputation reaches the majestic proportions of Alexander the Great. But historical record falls eerily quiet about her. I can't wait to learn more about a character from this myth, but also the historical relevance in this time period. Very excited for it. And then on a similar but also quite different note is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is another good for her female rage sort of story, but is about a serial killer. From reviews I've seen, it looks like this book is kind of gonna have some similar energy to Mayfly by CJ Lead, which I really enjoyed. Had some interesting commentary around female villains and female killers, so I'm really hoping for some of that. I've heard a lot of positive things about it so far from ARC reviewers, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Next question. Most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. There are a lot, but to give you a few of them, first is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. Ava Reid has definitely become an auto-buy author for me. I love their writing. The creation of their characters has been solid across the board. I'm very interested about this one, as Macbeth is probably one of the Shakespeare plays I don't know a ton about personally. I know it's gonna be feminist. I know it's gonna have a little bit of anger, possibly some romance going on here. So I am very excited, definitely hoping to get my hands on this one as soon as it comes out. And then ironically, speaking of CJ Lead, American Rapture by CJ Lead. I don't wanna know anything else about this book apart from looking at the cover, and I know it's a horror. I think it has some themes around religion, which of course is something I am very interested in all my stories, so I can't wait for that. I haven't heard the best things from early reviewers thus far, which does make me a little nervous. I'm hopeful that with the themes being around stuff I really enjoy reading, it'll kind of just work perfectly for me. And then finally, 𝗖cie is going to be coming out with a new film media commentary book, and that one is Feeding the Monster: Why Horror Has a Hold on Us. I'm really interested by this one. Even though I don't consume a ton of horror media, it is something I am very interested in, and I love to hear commentary around it. So of course, off of unlikable female characters, definitely going to be buying this one. On a very opposite note though, biggest disappointment. These hurt, but first off, I think I'm gonna have to say The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones, which closed out this trilogy. And unfortunately, this last book just didn't really work for me. I just felt like there was too much going on in it, and there were so many twists and turns to the point of paying homage to a lot of horror movies, but I don't like how all of these pieces work together in the end. The very final part of the book, I did enjoy how Jones ended up working out the story and making everything play out. I didn't love this the way I wanted to, unfortunately. And same can be said for Neanderthal Seeks Human by Penny Reed. I've loved the Winston Brothers series by her. It's one of my favorite romance series. I've been collecting those books. And so I thought, you know, I'll finally go back to her prior series, the one that Winston Brothers is actually a spinoff of, The Knitting in the City. And I started with this first book. I couldn't do it. The love interest was everything I don't like in a hero character put together. The writing in it was very of its time around the main character, the quirkiness, the comedy. It dated the story a lot. Thankfully, the second book went a bit better for me, and I am going to try the third. We'll see. That one really hurt to not finish, I'll be honest. Next question. Biggest surprise. Honestly, for this one, I think I'm gonna go with Star Wars: The Path of Deceit by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. This is one of the first books in the Star Wars series that I read, and it was just such a different look at the Force. And then I was very impressed with the authors in the way they ended up rolling out the ending of the plot. I did not see that coming. Obviously, it's a Star Wars novel, but there's this cult who thinks that the way the Jedi use the Force is actually abusing it. Rather, they think of the Force as almost like its own entity, its own deity, chooses where it should be and how it should work. And for the Jedi to manipulate it to their own whims is abuse of it. Therefore, they hate the Jedi. And it's this very interesting cult dynamic, but also just this perception around the Force that I've never seen in other Star Wars media, so I really enjoyed that. Next question. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? Absolutely have to say 𝗖cie RH, seeing as how I blasted through that whole series. I am planning to pick up the next book they have published, which is actually kind of like a continuous series. It's set in the same universe but following a different character, and I am really excited for that. Though apparently the second book in that series keeps getting pushed back, and so it makes me a little nervous to start it. I'd also say I think I can officially label Ava Reed as a favorite author off of this year. I have now 2 books from her that were 4.5 stars. Like I said earlier, she's kind of become an official auto-buy author for me. I'm going to check out everything she writes. Even the lowest rated book of hers, I still really enjoyed the writing, the atmosphere work, the character development there. I trust that if Ava Reed comes out with a new book, I'm probably gonna enjoy it somewhat. And then finally, I am so excited to see what KT Hoffman comes out with next. I really enjoy the prospects. There was so much in this romance that I think they did so well. There were some really refreshing elements to the story that were new. Can't wait to see what they come out with next. Next question, newest fictional crush. I don't have a ton of these, honestly, but I do think I would say Miles from Funny Story, though I am a big fan of Opposites Attract. That is definitely what Josh and I are. And I'm a little curious on whether Miles would just be too overtly positive for me. He loves sad things, which is something we would disagree on. But I am the sunshine in my relationship, and I don't know how it would feel by having to compete with another sunshine. Though I do appreciate the fact that somebody likened him to Nick from New Girl, and there are elements of him I do agree with. And that also makes sense as to why I enjoyed him so much. The other person I would say though is probably Lorna D from the Star Wars universe in Phase 2 of the High Republic. Once we got her origin story and a whole audio drama dedicated to her, I love her. She is such a woman. I'm so excited for more of her. We haven't seen any more of her since that book, and I am dying for what comes next in her story. I cannot wait. Next question, newest favorite character. I really have had a hard time with this one. I don't know. I guess I could say 𝗖cie in the Winter Night trilogy, as I did really enjoy her. She is so staunchly feminist and sticks up for what she believes in and is willing to do whatever it takes to do what's right in this series, which is very impressive. She is definitely going to be the element of the Winter Night trilogy that I remember the most, so I definitely could say her. I could also mention 𝗖cie and Axel from the Star Wars universe, particularly Convergence and Cataclysm. I really liked both of those. 𝗖cie is a Jedi Knight. Axel is this like big name politician's spoiled son. Particularly these two together just have such a fantastic dynamic because they push and pull with each other so well that it was very interesting to see them interact and watch how their relationship unfolded. It was really one of the best things of those 2 books in my opinion, and also probably why I enjoyed those 2 books so much. Next question. A book that made you cry. I could go with Funny Story again on that one, but I also want to mention A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. There's something traumatic that happens very early on in this book, which is in itself is a difficult thing to read, but then watching this character deal with that trauma throughout the story is just, it's rough. Watching Vel deal with this and try to heal from it is so heart-wrenching. I'll admit, I teared up more than once reading this book and watching that element of the plot unfold. Next question, a book that made you happy. TJ Klune always does that. I mean, he also emotionally punches you in the gut, but this series is a lot more happy-go-lucky so far. It does have some serious topics in it, but The Extraordinaries is just so ridiculous and funny and just self-aware, cringy. It's a silly good time. And so yeah, reading this series so far has made me incredibly happy. Every time I'm picking it up, I'm just live, laugh, loving, honestly. Though I could actually say the same for Old Flames and New Fortunes by Sir Hogel. Hogel's work is always a perfect rom-com. I mean, like, the comedy is so silly, it is over the top at times, but it works perfectly for me. Every time I read her books, they are so much fun. And this one did the same thing. I was laughing my ass off constantly. Not to mention that, but there's some really cute scenes going on in the romance here. Yeah, this one absolutely, I was happy the entire time. Well, I mean, except for that one character dealing with a little bit of trauma in their background, but apart from that, happy. Next question. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? That honor absolutely is going to The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, because I mean, this book is stunning. This was the January Evernight box. Like I said, it is just gorgeous. I still don't really know what this book's about, and I'm trying to keep it that way because I want to use it for our fantasy bingo where I judge a book by its cover. And like, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And it's signed. Stunning. I cannot wait to display it on my shelves. I am hoping, fingers crossed, to get a new bookshelf here soon, and that means I will have a little bit more room for displaying books again because a few of my shelves are rather filled. Final question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? A lot, as per usual. I will be going through my mid-year reading stats in another video coming out later, and in that one I'll walk through my 2024 TBR. But apart from those, I need to revisit Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. I not right now'd it, I think actually like last June, and so I want to revisit that and try again. Then I know for a fact I need to read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. My friend Kat annotated this one for me. I have a plan for it for a video, as well as it is on my loose Reddit fantasy TBR, so this hopefully will be getting read. And then also Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, once again is on my fantasy TBR and will also be in a video that I have planned for later this year, so definitely need to read it as well. On top of that, I've just been wanting to read it for so long. I actually requested this from the library the month it came out, and somebody else had checked it out and they never returned it. So I never got to officially read it. Eventually, somebody from the Lear was kind enough to buy it for me off of my wish list. All right, y'all, but that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a broom emoji in the comments. I have all my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!